Oh, wait, but we lost Crystal. Hopefully she jumps back on here. All right, so this is the board interviews for the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. We have 3 candidates. The first one is scheduled for.
We've had 4 candidates. Right?
But no. So Martha can't participate because she's already on the board.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right.
And then I think Carol withdrew her application. So I just think it's 3.
Aliberta,
Yes, ma'am.
can you open the door?
Oh, are you outside? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm coming. Okay. Graham did email me saying he couldn't make it tonight. Something came up. I don't know if it works or not. Yeah, Eric always keeps them. All right. Okay, so Crystal's here's in person with us as well. So yeah, typically, the board asks the question. Crystal, let me print out a packet for you so you can have a packet of the questions.
Okay.
So, yeah, the board members ask the questions. We can take turns. There's how many questions in total, Robert? You have the packet in front of you, right? Robert, how many questions are in that?
5.
All right, so we can take turns, like, Crystal, you can go first, then Cassie, and then Robert. But let me print out a packet for Crystal here. It will take me 1 second. Yeah, like I said, our first person, I think is Lisa Gallagher, and she is scheduled to be here at 6:15.
Do they submit resumes?
They did. I sent you a packet.
Okay, I'll look on my pocket computer here. There we go.
Let me see here. There it is. Sent this last week. Let me print out a packet of the questions for you.
Thank you. No Brenda yet, right?
Brenda?
Yeah.
Oh, new Brenda, you mean?
Yeah.
New Brenda.
I think they hired, they have an offer.
And I think hopefully the person can start mid-November.
Nice.
All right, I am printing. I'm going to print 3 copies of this. So you have 3 for each of the applicants. Robert, do you want some copies? Do you have enough for? Do you want me to print you some more copies of this questionnaire?
I have copies of their resumes right here.
All right, but okay, so I'll make 6 copies of the questionnaires.
Okay.
All right, so
I have only 1 copy. Of
yeah, so I'm going to make 6. So you have. All right. I'm printing that now. All right, so those are the questions. Yes, there's 5 questions. So again, Crystal, Cassie, Robert, and we'll just rotate around like that. Okay? I don't think these, again, it'll depend on the conversation, but typically these, in the past, they've taken between 15 and 20 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, Jeffrey's not coming either. You just email me right now. We'll see if anybody else joins. And again, we don't need quorum for this, but we just want to make sure that. All right, let me go get those copies.
Thank you. Oh.
Okay. So here is three for you.
Thank you.
There you go. Do you need a pen?
I would like a pen. Yes, thank
I'll
you.
get you a pen real quick.
Sorry, I came unprepared for class.
It's fine. Here's three for you, Robert. You have a pen. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go check outside too in case our person comes in. I let them know they could either,
Hybrid or in person.
yes. Let me get you a pen.
Christina, we have 2 openings tonight, is that correct?
3. I don't know. Let's check with Heriberto for sure. I think we have 3,
Okay,
but let's double check.
okay.
So I overheard the conversation.
2 or 3, Heriberto?
So we have Graham's position. Graham has timed out.
Okay,
Martha, of course, is reapplying, so we're gonna automatically recommend her. She's not even here tonight. We're not even, and then Michael resigned from the board.
Three.
Because of work. So technically we have 2.
Right,
another-
because we would recommend Martha to continue.
Right. So technically we have 2 and we have 3 candidates.
okay.
All right. All right, let me go check outside, see if this person's here, and if not, we'll just wait.
Few minutes. I believe Heriberto already started recording this meeting, so. This will be posted on YouTube.
All right, I'm not seeing anybody out there yet, so they might join us virtually, which is totally fine. All right. So yeah, a quick reminder, I'll tell them the same thing I'm telling you. Quick reminder, we are going to be doing these interviews and you will recommend, but ultimately it's council decisions, not the board's. So. I'm not seeing any emails from them, any issues. Just responding to Jeffrey. Okay. Yeah, at 6:15, I'll go check outside again, just in case, but that's the first person. And then I did 30-minute intervals, so I think these will take about 15, 20 minutes, and then, depending on the conversation. So. Yeah. She's at 6:15. Any questions before we get started? Okay, so remember, Crystal will ask question 1, Cassie question 2, your question 3, Crystal's question 4, Cassie, your question 5. Okay?
What person dropped out of the interview tonight?
Carol Mantis Craft withdrew her application because she had a lot of other things coming.
Okay.
So,
Here's Lisa.
yeah.
So Lisa just logged in, Eliberto.
Okay, great. You all ready?
I'll let her in.
No, wait.
Oh, you're in?
I thought I did. Let's see.
Did she drop off?
She may have
Okay.
dropped off. Let's see if she logs in again at 6:15.
There she is.
All righty. Do you get it? Oh,
I can
ready?
too. Yeah, go ahead. Hey, Lisa. Oh, we can't hear
Hi,
you.
Lisa.
Sorry, I was trying
There
to
we are. There. Well,
get
thank
on
you
my
for joining.
iPad.
No worries. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm just going to go over a couple of the logistics thing. We have 3 board members here tonight. We'll have them introduce themselves here in a second. I typically these take 15 to 20 minutes. I gave us a 30-minute window just in case, but typically it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. The board will ask 5 questions each, or not, like 5 questions between all 3 of them. We'll go round robin, and then we are done. The one caveat I tell everybody, or we've done these, is what the council had asked board to do these interviews and make recommendations, but ultimately they are only recommendations. It's council's prerogative, and they can choose whoever they choose to choose. But the board, they've asked the boards to have these recommendations, or these interviews and recommendations. So yeah, why don't we start with you letting you introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce ourselves real quick, or let the board introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lisa Gallinar. Let's see, I've worked in housing for about 20 years, mostly affordable and senior housing, some family housing. Have a passion for it, have a passion for helping my neighbors, those in the community. I've been a Longmont resident for almost 4 years now. I used to work for the City of Longmont for about 3.5 years. No, Eliberto and Christina. Let's see. Mom of 4 kids, 2 reside here in Longmont. I currently work for Boulder Housing Partners doing compliance for their housing programs.
Awesome. Robert, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? Quick introduction to Lisa.
What's that?
A quick introduction for Lisa.
My name is Rob Putnam. Been in the city Longmont 5 or 6 years. I've served on the open space and recreational advisory board, and now I'm with Human Relations. And I just like serving, doing my part for a city that I like.
Awesome. Crystal.
Hi, Lisa. My name is Crystal Prieto. I've been on the board, I think, we're going on 2 years,
right?
somewhere
Is it going on
around
3?
maybe 3, I don't know. You lose count. But yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Cassie,
Yeah, hi, I'm Cassie Lau, and this is my first year on the board, and nice to meet you.
awesome, thank you. So like I said, we're gonna do a round robin, Lisa, with questions. Crystal's gonna start us off. We were provided an interview guide by the council, so we're gonna work off of that. And so we're gonna start off with Crystal.
All righty. So Lisa, what do you feel you can contribute to this board?
I feel that I can contribute based on my knowledge of housing, affordable programs, low income programs. Been involved, worked with the Hour Center a lot, I'm actually a court mediator as well for eviction court proceedings in Boulder County. Just my knowledge of that, the needs of the households that are served or underserved in this community. Worked a lot with the permanent supportive housing, the suites, Xenia projects there in Longmont. I established a donation center there at the suites to make sure those residents had basic needs, pots, pans, comforters. So I see a need and I try to fill it.
Thank you so much.
Cassie,
Hi, so why is it important to you to be appointed to this board?
I feel I can contribute and help make a difference in Longmont. Since moving here 4 years ago, I've been blown away at the services that the city contributes to Longmont Senior Services, the Hour Center, Children, Youth, and Family. I've worked with all of them, just different programs. I've just been blown away, and I want to be part of that and help Longmont grow, but make sure those who need it are helped.
Thank you very much.
Robert, question number 3, please.
I have first a thing to ask you. And I have your application here and I've read it carefully. Do you have any changes you want to make in that application before I ask questions?
No, I don't know if I mentioned I'm a mediator in that, and since then I've become a notary in the state of Colorado.
Okay, now what challenges do you think the board is facing?
Not having enough money to help everybody. I feel I've gone back and I've watched multiple of your meetings, just seeing, what you guys have been doing, looking at your 2025 budget, where you may not be able to increase due to things, and just being able to help everybody. Like, I know a lot of people come to you wanting assistance or wanting to help with their foundations, their projects, stuff like that, and not probably having enough funds to spread out to everybody.
Thank you.
Crystal, question 4.
All right. Thank you. Lisa, what are some of the most significant human service and or housing needs that you see in our community today?
In Longmont, I feel that there's not enough permanent supportive housing for the homeless or those with mental health issues. There's not enough resources for them. And also for our families, I feel that there's not enough. I worked a lot with the seniors and I felt the seniors had access to a lot compared to other communities. And I just felt the families didn't have as much, or the competition for the families, it was harder for them to get their needs met because there was so many other families needing the same help.
Thank you.
Cassie, our last question.
Okay, well, an aside, I'm glad to hear you're a notary because once in a while I need one. But what do you feel is this board's role or the city's role in addressing the issues you just talked about?
Finding creative ways to fund resources. I think that's the biggest challenge, finding money, hidden money, taking the money we do have, or that you guys do have, and make sure it does the best work it can do with what you have. I know funds are tight and you want to help everybody, but it's making the best use of every dollar and making sure that dollar is going to those who really need it the most.
Thank you.
Lisa, do you have any questions for the board members?
I don't think I do. Like I said, I've gone back and watched quite a few of the past several years meetings, that watched some of the hearings as well. So
Okay, then what I'm gonna do now, because we have some more time, is I'm gonna talk a little bit about the rhythm of the board. And what I mean by that, just 'cause I wanna make sure every board member who ends up being a board member understands the commitment and the challenges of being a board member. So this board has two really busy seasons. We're in one right now. Probably, I think this is our busiest of the seasons, as board members are reading around 62 applications. They're not all reading all 62. We've broken it up this year to where most board members are reading between 20 and 29. No more than no one has 30 applications. But there's still quite a bit of applications, and that is really our fall busy season, starting typically late September through November. It's the busiest. We have these hearings, as you said. Thankfully, we've gone virtually. It used to be we made everybody come here, but these last couple of years we've done it virtually, so people can do it from home. It just makes it easier for folks. And then they're doing evaluations and they're filling them out and giving us scores. That's a lot of reading. So that's one of our busy seasons, and it culminates, of course, in our November meeting where we provide recommendations for councils based on a formulaic process, and then Christina and I take it to council. Our other busy season is typically in between March and June, where our housing side of the board is busy with all sorts of applications. Not as many as the Human Services Board. They're not, I mean, but they're just as lengthy, or even more sometimes. So the board has to read those applications and provide, I think the only difference is that with the housing ones, you get a little more guidance from staff, whereas for the Human Services ones, I train them on how to read them and how to score them, but I don't provide a ton of guidance. It's really the board members. It's up to the board member and their interpretation of the application, and how they want to prioritize the applications, right? So you get a little more support on the housing side because it's more technical, whereas with the Human Services side, it's really more about your experience and what you bring as a community member. So those are our two busiest times. I think I said this is the fall one's busier. I can't speak to how many hours each board member puts in, but I would assume it's no less than 20 hours in the month of September and October. And just reading and attending hearings, I would assume that we're probably around 20 hours in that month, or that month and a half period, which is quite a bit for a board, right? So I just want to make sure that anybody who applies is kind of coming with eyes wide open, that there's a lot of work that we're going to ask of you. We try and work by consensus, but at the end of the day, it is, we do have Robert's rules, and so we do take votes, and sometimes it's not unanimous, and that's okay. Anything else I should say from board members? But we work pretty well together. It's a pretty cohesive board, and with different points of view from the community. Christina, anything? Am I missing anything?
No, I think you covered it all.
Yeah, I think the only other thing is in the past, it's hard for board members, but I do site visits of our agencies, and board members are always welcome to come. It's hard because it's typically during the workday, and it's hard for folks to get away. But that's the other piece where board members are welcome to attend if they so choose. But either way, I report out on the site visits at board meetings.
well, my employer, Boulder Housing Partners, is I ran it by them, just making sure no conflicts of interest, and they were actually excited for me to be apply for this and be part of it. And even though Boulder Housing Partners, it's the housing authority for the city of Boulder, and they don't do projects in Longmont. They like the connection and the partnership and just, making sure their employees are serving their own communities.
Great. All right, if no further questions at the board, any last questions of her? All right, if not, thank you so much, Lisa, for attending tonight. And we will let you know. Or
Sounds
the
good.
actually city clerk will let you know. Not
Okay.
us, we just put in the recommendations in council, so it'll be city clerk that connects with you after. I think council's doing their, I think it's December 10th, but I'm not sure, Christina, when council's doing its selections.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look back at the
At the council
mhm.
agendas, yeah, so they do it in December. We just have to get it in as soon as possible so that they can take a look at our recommendations. And I forgot to say, this is being recorded because it's a public meeting and they will probably want to see this too, so.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
board, and thank you, Alberto and Christina.
Nice seeing you again.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So our next person shows up at 6:45, because I give us 30 minutes just in case about conversations. But that's typically how it goes. You will ask your questions, you will all rate, and then we will discuss it in November at a November meeting. Just to say, do we recommend these folks? Ultimately, all we need is a recommendation. We don't need the applications. We just need a yes or no from the board. These are just to kind of help you figure out your yeses and nos.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what happens in the instant, like, say that we didn't have enough apply, or the ones that applied, we didn't recommend, would you guys put out another application?
No, that's a great question, but no, we just stay as is. So if we, for example, currently with Michael's resignation, we're down to 8 board members, right? And so, if we couldn't replace someone, then we would stay at 8. I mean, we have more than enough candidates to go back to 9 because there's 3 openings. Like I said, Martha's one of those openings, and we're going to recommend her, right, as a board. And then so there's 2 and there's 3 candidates that we're looking at tonight. So we get to choose. Well, council gets to choose between those 3 candidates.
Okay.
Yeah. So typically, if a board, the only issue is we have to have a majority present for a quorum. So whether it's 8 or 9, we have to have 5 present. If we had 7, we only have to have 4 present. Because 8, you always have to have majority. So with 8 or 9, you always have to have 5 people present to have a quorum. Which, like tonight, it doesn't matter because we're not making any decisions. You're just interviewing, and so we're recording it so the council can see it and make their decisions. But if there are votes needed, that's where that 8 and 9 is difficult because you always need 5. Whereas 7, you just need a majority, which would be 4.
Thank you.
Yeah. What if I can pause the recording and start it again? I don't know. I don't understand Teams.
I think it would send you a couple different recordings, but that would be okay.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Video effects. Let's see, record and transcribe.
Yeah, I don't know because remember these are, so I get the hearings ones. I have to send it to our comms team and they put it on YouTube.
Got it.
Yeah. So, well, while we're talking, how are your evaluations coming?
Good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm supposed to meet with Cassie on Friday. Cassie, I'm not sure if I want to have everything done. I'm working hard. But with all of the subject matter, actually all the other staff, it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. Because we have so many staff that are doing their own evaluations, and I will tell you that some of the some of the comments I'm seeing are really amazing. Like they
Good.
really thoughtful comments from the SME. I'm pretty happy with adding them, Christina. It just means a lot of more work
Yeah.
for me, but
Well, it'll be easier when we have that admin help next year.
yeah, we can divide and conquer more. Because right now it's just me doing it all. But yeah, again, some of the comments are super insightful, things I didn't even think about.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's been good to have these folks help out with that. And most of them only had, because there's so many of them, most of them only had, I think the most somebody had was like 8 applicants, because they just did one priority area, except for health and well-being, because as you know, health and well-being is always one of our largest group of applicants. But most of them only have about 7 or 8 applications to do, because there's like, I think there's like 12 or 13 reviewers instead of just,
So staff helping?
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so when you open your evaluation, you get 3 choices. You can do COL, HS, HHSAB, which is yours. Then there's COL staff, which is me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we created a third one called COL XME, which means subject matter expert. And those are the other
Oh, nice.
non-human service administration staff. They're either CYS staff or senior services staff.
Oh,
So yeah.
interesting.
And they have similar questions to yours. They don't have any questions similar to mine. They have kind of the questions you have, but they don't have all the questions you have. But
Good.
yeah,
I've been enjoying the interviews.
yeah, they've been helpful. I mean, they're always helpful when you get to ask questions about the agency or the application. Those are always.
So is the board planning to ask for more monies come the next time around, or? I know we were talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question that the board can discuss and see what they want to do. I will tell you that, what Christina and I have heard is just that at least we'll see what the coming year says, but it's been, this year, 2025 is going to be a very tight budget year. We'll see what 2026 shows. Remember, so our money is based on a percentage of the general fund. So it's not a strict line item or not a strict number.
Mm-hmm.
So if the city's general fund grows through use and sales tax, then we get more money. If the city doesn't have as much sales tax or use tax, then we get less.
So you can't predict.
You can't predict.
Did the city manager ever come? I know like they were gonna come or we were gonna meet them, or do you remember that?
You remember talking about it, but I don't think he has come. I think if the board wanted him to come, we could invite him to come.
I think that would be good.
Yeah, we could invite him to,
Yeah.
we could talk to Tim, maybe our December meeting. Our November meeting is gonna be tight.
Okay.
But maybe our December meeting would be sometime he can come.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to just have him come every so often and talk to him about what we're seeing, and because he makes the decision, right?
No,
Who makes the overall allocation decision as to what?
he
departments?
recommends, but his council's,
Okay,
it's council who decides what the,
but his recommendations are,
yeah,
they're pretty, I mean, they come with a little bit of weight.
right, yeah. Yeah, I think we could definitely invite Harold, our city manager, to one of our meetings, whether it's December, January, either one is fine.
All
I
right,
just think our November one's gonna be tight because we're gonna have both a public hearing for the con plan for the first hour, and then we're gonna do deliberations the second hour. So it's gonna be a packed agenda in
okay,
November.
Cool.
So
let's do it. What do you guys think, or?
Christina, any thoughts? I mean, I think we have talked about inviting Harold to come.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I think it'll be good too.
Christina's dog says yeah too.
This dog barks and barks anytime I'm on a call and not paying attention. It's horrible.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, like if you know the needs there and you continue to see the people and you're having conversations around the topic, I think it's more present on your mind versus not
Right.
working or being or
Yeah.
familiar or in that department. And so
Yeah.
I think
Well,
human services and housing is a huge,
Yeah.
it's a huge need in the city of Longmont, and I think it's worth the hobnobbing with the big guy.
Yeah, and he can share. I think it's also good for the board to hear like the bigger picture of what the city,
Absolutely.
the city operational needs are.
Yep.
You know, to understand the picture of the budget, he can present on that as well.
Oh, yeah. Cool. We'll feed him. We'll feed him and treat him real nice every time he comes.
I'll see if this person is gonna join online. A couple of minutes, I will walk out there.
I can go check for you. Would you like me to?
Yeah, at 6:40. I told them to be here about, if they're gonna come, like, be 5 minutes. You know, and if they show up online 5 minutes earlier, then we can start earlier too, since we're.
Okay.
But that's kind of how we're gonna do the questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay.
Okay.
And we'll do the same with all the three. We gotta ask the same questions to all three candidates. And then if they want to have further conversation, I always ask them if there's any questions they have for you all. And so we'll see what they say.
Okay. Well, this last one went pretty quick. I remember talking and talking and talking.
Yeah, no, that's why I gave us 30 minutes. I knew some were gonna be, like, I think Lisa was done like in 10, 12 minutes. I think they might have more questions. Part of that's because like Lisa worked here, so she kind of knows.
Okay.
She knows what's going on. And so yeah, we'll see what the next ones. I'm not sure how much they know about the board. And so they may have more questions. Like Lisa worked here, she's actually presented to this group in the past. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the next person, if they have more questions.
All right. And we don't give these to you, right?
I do not need them.
Okay. You
Those
need
are interviews.
recommendations.
Right. So what's going to happen is, at the November meeting, we're going to do it, and we're going to have to make time for it. You will all present to the board, and you will take a vote on whether you recommend them all, or if there's one you don't recommend, or what. I mean, yeah, you'll all take a vote together. But because you're the ones here, you'll be the one telling the board.
Well, she said that she watched our previous meetings, but I'm surprised she showed up. Just saying. She didn't think we were too crazy of a bunch.
No. You want to go out?
Yeah.
Somebody knocking. There might be somebody already knocking. Actually.
Oh,
Let's go see. I thought I heard a knock.
okay. I'll let you go check on the knock.
You never know. Still
Yeah.
close to Halloween, who's knocking, you know?
I'm gonna say, big creepy dark building, no one in it. No big deal.
It's supposed to snow again tonight.
Is it? Doesn't look like it.
I mean, I like what happened, I like the snow, but the streets are still warm. It melts.
It just melts,
Right.
yeah.
But, if it gets cold enough, then it will start sticking to the streets.
Okay. My 9-year-old was pretty upset this morning. She thought she had a snow day.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
love
already tired
snow
of the
days.
winter weather.
yeah.
I don't
But
like
there's
the
nothing like a
snow
snow
anymore.
day. They're the most wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think so. Because then I get a snow day.
I think we've had a snow day maybe once or twice in the 25 years that I've worked for this city. I remember my daughter was in Berthoud with my sister one year, the one snow day that we had, and it took me an hour and a half from the youth center to Berthoud to get there.
Wow.
It was that bad. It was
Wow.
really, really bad.
Yeah.
Nobody was out there, huh?
Nope, just hearing noises.
See, that's why I didn't go check. Big jerk.
Well, did you all know that I was talking to Karen before she retired, and there was no ceiling when this building was first built.
What?
Like over the mall. It was.
Oh, that's
it was,
why it's sort of weird, the building. So you mean there's like an atrium?
Yeah, there was no ceiling. It was open.
Yeah.
It
The
was meant to,
architecture is a little strange, so.
yeah, it was meant to feel like in like a
Industrial kind of.
no, more like a pavilion, like a outdoor mall type of thing.
Ah.
So
Yeah.
even in the city manager's office, there was no ceiling?
I think the city manager's office was a different building.
I can't visualize that.
Yeah, so you see, if you walk outside, you see like that big glass.
Yeah, yeah.
That wasn't there.
Huh. It was open air.
It's open air. Yeah, it was really meant to feel like an open air.
What do we do in the winter?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
You would have really been tired, Christina.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
I
it's
was
been a long day today. I've been in back-to-back meetings since 10 a.m.
Oh.
Yeah. And I've been looking at scores all day. You got to walk away from that once in a while because there's just so many scores.
Oh, yeah.
But I've gotten through a lot of the SMEs. I've gotten through a lot of the priorities, and my hope is to finish.
Here we go. Somebody
yeah.
just,
That's
perfect.
That's our 645. Mark Sizzler. I should ask him how he pronounces his name. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let him in.
Sounds good.
Hey, Mark, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let me set some logistics up, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Just really quickly, how do you pronounce your last name?
Sizzler.
Sizzler. Okay.
Yep.
Well, all right. Well, thank you for joining us. So council has asked all advisory boards to interview potential board members and provide recommendations to council. So right off the bat, I will say we are providing recommendations, but it is council's prerogative to choose whoever they feel is the best fit, right? So we will do the interviews and provide recommendations, but council gets to decide. So I just want to put that out front.
Hey, Eliberto, do you want to tell Mark who you are?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're going to do introductions in a second, but my name is Eliberto Mendoza. I'm the Human Services Program Manager. I help facilitate a lot of stuff for this Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. So we're going to do a quick introduction, let you introduce yourself first, and then the board members are going to introduce themselves, and then we will start with questions. Okay, so do you want to introduce yourself, Mark, real quick, and then we'll start with the board. So hold on.
My name's,
hold on, Robert. Robert, we're going to let Mark introduce himself first.
My name's Rob Putnam, and I've got on the board to replace somebody who had dropped out. So I completed their term, and I've been reappointed to the board. And so it's technically my first time, but I've been here before.
Got it.
My background is I'm an editorial cartoonist, and I watch other cities and what they're doing in terms of housing and human relations. And so I have sort of a wide sense of what's going on in the West in terms of housing and homelessness and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Crystal, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi. Pleasure to meet you. My name is Crystal Prieto. I'm a board member. I did see that you served on the U.S. Air Force, so thank you so much for your service. And thank you for being here tonight.
All right, Cassie.
Hi, so I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm on the board, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Awesome. Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm the Human Services Director for the city, and I have been with the city 25 years. So, yeah, pleasure to
Right.
meet you. Yeah, if you want to introduce
Nice to meet
yourself and say a little bit about
Yeah.
yourself, then we can get
I
started.
will. I will. Thank you. I'm Mark Sisler. I am. We moved to Longmont last summer. Actually, we moved up here from one of the southern suburbs. So we wanted to move up and get a little bit more space for the family and whatnot. So we moved up here. Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm a small business owner right now. I'm retired Air Force. Worked in a corporate environment for a number of years. Traveled extensively. It didn't like that anymore because I didn't want to do that the rest of my career. Really, the last several years have been very involved in nonprofits for mostly around my time with Coal Creek Meals on Wheels. I was the president of the board for Coal Creek Meals on Wheels. I served the communities down in Lafayette, Erie, Superior, and Louisville. So I was on the board for 7 years. Was the board president. Really, that organization. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows what the organization does, but really, food insecurity. And I was always driven towards that specifically as a young child, seeing family members in need of things and kind of got back into that, and just a soft spot in my heart for people in need of a meal and just being able to eat. And that goes into social interactions. That goes into housing. We spent a lot of time with folks in social calls and really diving into that. So I spent the time on the board. I was term limited last year, so no longer on the board. Took a year break of kind of doing anything extra because I think everybody's schedules get too sometimes get real busy, and I think I try to make sure that I don't dilute myself enough so I can't throw everything I have and 100% to whatever I'm doing. So yeah, it's a little bit about me, my wife, and we have 5 girls, and we have grandkids now. We got 4 grandkids, so they're young. They don't live here, but we see them quite a bit. So yeah, just a joy to be around, and just love living in Longmont. So
Awesome. Mark, I apologize. I keep forgetting this is this is a public hearing, public interview, because I have 3 board members, so it is being recorded because council also wants to see it as they do their decision-making process for selecting board members.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so we're going to start now. The rotation is going to go like this. Crystal's going to ask the first question, Cassie the second question, Robert the third, then back to Crystal, and then finally to Cassie. And then at the end of that, I'd love to answer any questions you may have of the board, and I will also give you kind of a rundown on how the board works and the amount of work that we do. So that's how it's going to go. With Crystal asking your first question.
All righty, here we go. So Mark, what do you feel you can contribute to this board?
Good question. I think kind of with my history of being involved in nonprofits from that side of things, I think really, I have a good history of working with the community and understanding their needs from all the different varieties of needs that are out there, and really being open to kind of listening to all sides. I think I'm a very level-headed, calm, don't get too excited over any one issue person. That's my personality. I'm an analytical at heart, so I like to look at data. But I still, at the same time, I think I believe I've got a big heart, and I believe that I can listen accurately and effectively to all sides of the story before coming up with a decision and coming up with a recommendation or having further dialogue. I think that's probably my biggest strength is my personality, is being able to just kind of look at everything objectively and kind of help make the best recommendation and the best decision possible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cassie.
Hi, so why is it important to be appointed to this board?
Good question, Catherine. I looked at all of the open board positions that the city had and really made some very strategic decisions about which ones I wanted to be part of. I felt my skills and background kind of lend me to this board more so than some of the other vacancies that are out there. Not that those are not important. I just think that, this is an important topic. It's important for the city. It's important for our country. I don't think anybody should go homeless or not have food or not have access to any of those things. So I really feel, strongly about that, and that's why I selected to, apply for a board position on this particular board. Just because I think that my skills would lend itself closely to this board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert?
What challenges or issues do you think the board is facing? Do you see any things that the board has to deal with, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on the notes online and some of the past agendas for the board, just to kind of look and see kind of what the board is, faced with, and, a lot of information, a lot of different organizations. Money is a finite, resource, so it's like it's got to be spread out equitably, and a lot of tough decisions probably have to be made. But I see affordable housing as a challenge. And I know that there's push and pulls on both sides of that, and availability of reliable, safe, affordable housing, I think is probably really critical. And I mean, I don't think anybody in our city is immune to the homeless population that we see. I mean, it's heartbreaking in every city, not just Longmont. But I just think there's a lot that probably needs to be done there, and a lot of decisions that have to be made, and a lot of ideas that could be generated from looking at some of those challenges. But probably the housing and food insecurity and that kind of stuff, I think, is really probably the biggest challenge that this board has to deal with, from my perspective.
I have one other.
Sure.
minor question. I have your application here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I've read it.
Oh, thank you.
Changes you would like to make that you feel you didn't cover or want to make?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I put most of it in there. I think the resume comes back from the technical side of things, but I think really just my involvement. I was prior to moving to Longmont, I was part of a board in the city of Westminster. We lived in Westminster, so I was on the personnel board down there. And that was, a different board. You're dealing with personnel issues. You're dealing with, all kinds of things regarding city employees, and they would come to the board, and it's just part of how it would, if there were any grievances and things like that. So I had interactions with the city there, and a different city, different board, different structure, but I've got some experience there and working with the HR managers and things like that as far as the city goes. So that, I've been involved with Chamber of Commerce. So, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce gets involved with a lot of small business issues and things like that. So I've got that side of things as well. And I was a board member of the Chamber of Commerce as well as the treasurer. So I think I put most of that in there, but I think most of it is in there. But thank you for being so detailed and reading that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Crystal.
All righty. You kind of touched on some of this earlier,
Mhm.
but the next question asks, what are some of the most significant human service and or housing needs in our community today?
From what I know, and this is just from what I see, is affordability. I think affordability is big across the state. I think affordability of housing is a challenge right now for every city, every county. It's not just Longmont. But I think that affordability, is a big one. Availability of affordable housing, having enough of available housing, and really just having it safe and reliable. But I think affordability is a big challenge right now for the citizens of this state and county and city.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cassie, last question.
So what do you feel, what do you feel is this board's or the city's role in addressing these issues that Crystal just mentioned?
Yeah. From what I've seen, my view is, I know that you're dealt with a lot of information. You provided a lot of information, a lot of different organizations, different grant opportunities, city funding opportunities, different things, and I think there's recommendations that have to be made to, support those initiatives and support those organizations. To city council and whatnot, and I think there's probably a lot of decisions that have to be made, and there's probably a lot of decisions that are hard, and people are not always going to get what they want. We're not always going to be able to give people what they want, unfortunately. But I think doing the best part that you can, the board can, to recommend the next course of action for whatever is out there, I think is important. But yeah, I think, and probably faced with a lot of human services is never going away. It's always going to be, I think, there. And there's always going to be new and unique challenges that come up. And I think being flexible and nimble to be able to, address those issues as best the board can for city council, I think is probably pretty important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mark. Before I let you ask questions, I'm actually going to give you a quick rundown of what I call the rhythm of the board, and then I will open it up for your questions. So this board has, it's a busy board. I think it's busier than maybe the planning boards might be a little bit busier than we are because of all the different things they have to do. But it's a pretty busy board, a lot of work, but it's in cycles. It's not constant. Right now, one of our busiest season. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at our City of Longmont YouTube page, but we do public hearings for all of the applicants that apply to the human services funding. So we just did eight hearings of, I think, 62 programs.
Wow.
Yeah. So quite a bit of work. And board members are required to read between 20 and 30 applications apiece. This year, nobody had 30. I think the most we had was either 28 or 29. And then fill out, I think it's like a seven or eight question evaluation. I forget, on an online platform. And so it's quite a bit of work. I don't know exactly how many hours, but I've heard it's about in this month and a half between late September and November, it's probably around 20 hours, if not a little more hours of work. And then our other busy time is when we hear some of the housing applications. We have a couple of funds, the Affordable Housing Fund and another one called the Community Development Block Grant Fund. That's federal funding that we get applications from the community. There's a little more help from staff there in the sense that it's pretty technical, so the staff will provide recommendations for the board to review. For the human services, I provided some training on what to look for, but ultimately it's really up to individual board members to decide how they feel about the application. So yeah, those are our two busiest, like some in spring between March and June, and then it's getting busy again in between September and November. And in between there, boards also, I do site visits to all of our nonprofits that not all, every 3 years we do a site visit to a funded agency, or every new agency we fund, we do a site visit. I invite board members, if they're available, to join me on those site visits. They do take about an hour. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good rundown of the work. Crystal, Robert, Cassie, anything I'm missing?
I would like to say that you'll get a lot to read. We get a lot of information, a lot of numbers, a lot of that sort of thing. And yeah, we're talking lots of and
Yeah.
a lot of reading. And if you want to know about the city of Longmont, this is one of the ways you can learn about it, as what kinds of people are living here, how much they earn, a whole bunch of things. It's like an education in addition to service. You're educating yourself about how this city is put together, where its weak points are.
Gotcha.
Ed, do you have any questions for the board?
Typically, is there a monthly cadence as far as meetings? Is it every month? Typically virtual or in person or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's typically hybrid. We
Okay.
like I'm typically at every board meeting. And then some folks come in person and some folks join us online. So
Okay.
that's it. Sometimes we take the month of August off. It depending how, like this year we did. It depends really when our applications are due. So we do tend to take the month of August off, but that's the only month we take off, unless we're pretty busy the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it's the second Thursday of every month from 7 to 9, and sometimes we get out earlier than that. And like Eliberto said, they're hybrid meetings.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at the agenda. I think for this, was it the November meeting? I don't know, one of the agendas that was posted online, and I recognized quite a few of the organizations on there. Not all of them, but I recognized a few of the organizations that were on the hearing. That you had. So I could definitely see the wide variety of organizations that you're getting information from. So
and that's a good point. So talking about monthly cadence in October, October numbers when we have the most amount of hearings that are not our regular meeting, right? So all of those hearings were hearings that were outside of our regular meeting schedule. This meeting is outside our regular meeting schedule. We typically just do. Is that person? I'm not sure who that person is. Somebody outside. So yeah, I will let everybody else talk, and I will go check to see who is outside. That might be our next person. It might not. So I will go check.
Okay.
Can you take over?
Yeah. So yeah, as Eliberto said, or I think he was going to say, October, November are really the crunch time, because it's reading applications, and then the hearings, and then November and December becomes crunch time for us, because we take the recommendation for funding. We have to have that by the end of December, so that we can start, we can get that recommendation or changes that council has to the funding awards, so that we can start contracting with agencies so they get their checks as soon after the first of the year as possible.
Okay. So the board itself, I mean, I know that you were talking about all the reviews and all the reading and all the materials and numbers and understanding questionnaires and filling all that out. Does the city staff work on all the technical, putting it all together?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know. I mean, every board's different, but I know that you've got the city staff there. I mean, yourself and others can put it all together and do all the fun work.
Yep. We have an open admin position that hopefully that person will start in December. But they really, Eliberto and the admin person really do all that behind the scenes work to get scores in and spreadsheets and all of that. Yeah.
Putting it all together and put a bow on it.
Yeah.
And I can see that aside from all of the busy work, this is a really great way to get to know a lot of the nonprofits out there, and to see what's working, what's not, and networking. It's a really great networking opportunity as well. Creating relationships and brainstorming. Christina, you were doing some of the nonprofit engagement sessions, and so Christina was putting together, like, you know, all of the childcare nonprofits would come together and brainstorm about how could they collaborate and kind of tackle some of the community issues that we're seeing, right? Because funding can only go so far. And so
Right.
the board really does a lot in that area and is able to really participate in a lot of, you know, different things aside from the busy work. So if you're interested in nonprofits
Yeah.
and community engagement and serving your community, this is a wonderful board to do that in.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. There's so many, and I'm sure you've seen this. There's so many organizations out there that you never even knew existed, and you know there might have been organizations for childcare, but you didn't really know their names, and you didn't really know what they did, or how they did it, and what they needed, and how they got funding. So I think that's a great point. There's a lot of need out there, and there's a lot of organizations that do great things every day. They all do, and how do you? Yeah, and then you know how do you how do you give them all money and how do you make them all successful? It's all part of it, I'm sure.
All right. Any more questions from
Yeah.
you?
No, I don't think so. I think sounds like all of you are really really involved in the process and love it and seem to really understand that you get to know the community. You get to know what's out there probably more than a lot of the other boards do. There a lot of the other boards seem to be very specific and very narrow, and it seems like this board is you can see a lot of different avenues out there. So I really don't have a whole lot more questions. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the time and the questions and the process. I know I've been on that side of the process many times, and it always takes time, but to do it right, you have to take some time. So appreciate that. So,
Well, thank you so much for joining, Leonard.
What are the next steps in the process?
Yeah, I was about to do that. So, the board will vote in November. We draft a memo to council, giving our up or down. We don't put a ton of details. We just say yes or no. We recommend. And then this goes so the council can view this video if they so choose. And then they get to make their decision in December. Again, all we're doing is recommending. Council gets to decide who they want on the board. We don't, they didn't want us to have this interview and provide recommendations, but they get to choose whoever they want to be on the board.
And how many is the board set up for total to be full?
Yeah, sure.
Board members?
We have a total of 9 according to our bylaws. And right now we have 3 openings, but 1 person is reapplying, and the board, of course, has recommended them to redo. So we have 2 open spots, basically.
Okay. Do you have alternates too, or does this board not require alternates?
We do not require alternates. If we don't get enough, then we will work off what we get. Like if the council decides to no one, then we will have a board of 6. I doubt it's going to happen, but if the council were to do that,
Sure.
we would just work off of 6.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Right.
Well, I don't have any more questions. I appreciate the time.
You won't so that's one last thing. You probably are not going to hear from me or from us. You will probably hear from city clerk if you are appointed. Because again, these are just recommendations. City clerk will take it to council, and then council will tell city clerk who they want on the board.
So sometime, I'll hear something in December sometime, probably.
You'll get either Don or Michelle from our city clerk's office will reach out to you.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. Right. Well, I thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Nice to meet you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Alberto, I noticed we don't have a DEI question on this.
We could try. We didn't create this. This was created by clerk and city council. Right? This is not created by the board. We could
let them know they left out a DEI question.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we can provide that feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. So I think Robert's going to the restroom, which is fine. Katie is here in person, and so that's great. So as soon as he gets back, I will go get her and we will get started.
That'll work.
Yeah, and that's our last application of the night. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know I put so much on you in reading those applications.
Been a lot, yeah.
Thank you. But it was really interesting for me, especially.
Yeah,
So I graded them and then I went back, especially after the meetings, I had more insight, which was interesting for me, very interesting.
yeah.
You learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people were, I mean, the agencies, most of them are really impressive.
Yeah.
All right, Robert, are you ready for the last one?
Mhm.
Are you ready for the last one? Okay, she's here in person. I will go get her. All right, Katie, we are in person. We are ready for you.
Where team knows it, so I always have difficulty with team.
You can take a seat wherever. All right.
That's not the way. Hi.
Hello.
All right. So thank you for coming. My name's Heriberto Mendoza, I'm the Human Services Program Manager.
Nice to
We'll do introductions here in a second. Just so you know, this is a public hearing, and so it is being recorded because council wants to see these interviews, so they can make their final decisions. So why don't we start with introductions? Robert, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Rob Puddle, and I was appointed to fulfill, somebody dropped out, and so I completed their term, and then it was reappointed. So I don't know whether this is my first one or my one and a half one, whatever. I make my living as an editorial cartoonist, and I see newspapers, 60-some newspapers from around the West, and I sort of like housing because a lot of these papers deal with homelessness and affordable housing, worker housing, and what their solutions are and whether they work or not. For example, does buying a trailer park, is it a good idea or a bad idea, that kind of thing. So and I enjoy being on the board because you get to learn a lot about the city of Longmont. We get all kinds of statistics about who's here, like Longmont's older than Boulder. It's a little more conservative than Boulder. So you get a sense of what the city's like in terms of its numbers, how many different ethnic groups are here. It's more diverse than Boulder in that regard. So, it's a great place, not just to serve the city of Longmont, but to learn about the city of Longmont.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Crystal Prieto. I am a board member. Like Robert, I'm not sure exactly how long I've been here. I know more than a year because I've been through the round of applications before. And thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cassie Lau, and this is my first year on the board, and it's nice to meet you.
Good evening. I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm the Human Services Director here at the city. And I've been with the city 25 years next week, actually.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, why don't we hear from you a little bit?
So my name is Katie Torres, and I have been in Longmont since 2005. And I moved here with my then 4-year-old twins and my husband. And I quickly became involved in kind of volunteering in their school. And they were in a little Montessori school that had been here for an early childhood program that had been here for 30 years at that time.
Wow.
And got very involved. And there was, I was also on the museum board when there was the whole Discovery Days and the fundraising for this decision to actually build the expansion. So I did actually, that's the one city board I did serve on, but it was many moons ago. And I quickly became very involved in a grassroots effort to found a school, a charter school.
Wow.
And so that I began leading that effort. I had worked always in the private sector. We came from Chicago. I had worked in the private sector, well and successfully, and but wanted to do something different. And so when I became passionate about Montessori education, and so I led the grassroots effort to found the school, and not realizing that I would then end up leading the school because I didn't come from an education background. I came from a private sector business background. And so I really spent 2 years working closely with St. Vrain Valley School District, as well as the Colorado League of Charter Schools, got the school off the ground, and then became its leader. And that really was all consuming. Working as a school leader in the public sector, in a new kind of new arena for me speaking about learning, that was a real, learning how to build a plane while it's flying. But it was an enormously satisfying experience. And the school just finished its 15th year of operation. And wow. We've served 3,000 children during my tenure, but I stepped back in July and we hired a new leader. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to broaden my involvement in the broader community, because it's really been intensely focused on running this school. The school will be expanding dramatically because it was included in the bond that just passed yesterday.
Wow.
So just east of the Innovation Center, the school will be built to open in the fall of 26. And so that's a huge legacy that I'm really proud of and excited about, and so happy for the community, the Longmont community. It's predominantly Longmont that we serve, although really it's the whole school district. And so that was really my lens during that time, was definitely service primarily to children, but I also at any given time had a staff of 45 to 50 people. And so supporting adults as they do really hard work to serve children. And, everything from what goes on in the classroom to what goes on in their lives, and speaking of, I think a passion I've always really had is bringing people, even though we're not part of the school district, although we have a great relationship with them, essentially we're a private sector employer, even though, we operate similar to a private sector employer. So we bring a lot of people to Longmont and hire teachers. And it was always, I think it was always pretty easy to attract people to Longmont because the cost of living was reasonable and you're still in Boulder County and people really loved it here, and great food and music and art and all the wonderful services the city has to provide, free public transportation. But increasingly I've observed over the years how hard it is for teachers who work within the district to afford to live within the community. And I know that's not just teachers. And over the years, we've had folks that there were sort of, I think maybe, at least 10, if not a dozen years ago, there were things like, there were these grant programs that were available for down payment assistance for teachers and firefighters and police. And we actually had people, go through that process. And it was incredibly, gratifying to hire people, bring them to the community and see them be able to build their lives here. But the last few years, it's been really hard to attract and retain teachers because of the cost of housing primarily. And so I was just so my lens was really kind of very focused on how to attract people to our thriving community. And because we wanted the best teachers to serve our children. but I also, I enjoyed, I went to the State of the City event that also was like, had the State of Education event. And I was just so thrilled to hear about all the housing options and opportunities that are coming online. Seems like all at once, but, excitingly, because I think that to sustain the thriving community, not only do we need an awesome education system, which, the voters really, really supported yesterday, but we also need a diversity of housing.
Could you move closer to the,
Oh, sure.
all I see is your
Oh,
hand.
I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Yeah, I can only see your
I
hand.
So
apologize.
I'm gonna,
I talk with my hand.
yeah, no, thank you. I'm gonna get us started.
Yeah.
Love to hear your story, but I'm gonna, for the sake of time, I'm gonna get us started. So what we're gonna do here in a second is Crystal's gonna start with question 1.
Oh, sure.
Cassie's gonna do question 2, Robert's 3, Crystal 4, and then Cassie 5.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna talk a little bit about the rhythm of the board,
Okay.
and then we're gonna give you a chance to ask board members any questions you may have,
Great.
and then I'll go over next steps.
Yes.
All
Great.
right.
I apologize. I kind of thought you were asking for all that information.
That's
No,
no,
okay.
totally fine.
Oh,
Let's
no,
hear-
you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
You did it in the beginning,
Okay.
Yeah.
right at the end, and that's perfect because that's exactly what we wanted to
Okay,
hear.
good. Sorry about that.
No worries,
Thank
no
you for
worries.
sharing.
So Crystal, why don't you start with question 1?
And it's super exciting. Congratulations
Thank you.
on the
Thank
15 years. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, is start a school grassroots. Like, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my first question for you. What do you feel you can contribute to this board specifically?
I think that a couple things. Number one, I am a person who is really embraces all aspects of hard work. Like and I think I also have very much a growth mindset. And so when you're not actually on a board, you don't necessarily know exactly what the workings are. And so you kind of have a sense, I think. But I have a pretty exhaustive professional skill in a variety of areas. So like understanding what the work of the board is, and where also you feel you have usually when you bring a board together, you've got kind of complementary skills. So figuring out sort of where your gaps are and what I might be able to bring to that. I mean, the truth is, in terms of, number one, I do have a growth mindset, so I'm curious. So I'm a curious learner. And so kind of I think I bring humility to understanding what I don't know and learning from others. At that point, I also feel like I have a pretty good sense of self and my skills. And so I think I can really be honest about where can I add value and how can I help based on what the priorities are of the board. And then I also have some agility because I have a pretty exhaustive background. And so my professional experience, both in the private sector as well as in the school environment, I have a lot of operational knowledge across a variety of functions. So I feel like probably with some understanding of what the needs are, I probably have skills that I could bring to bear.
Awesome. I think you do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Cassie, question 2.
So why is it important to be appointed to this board?
For me, a couple reasons. I think in reading sort of the agendas of the board and the statements on the website of the board, I think that the board, the board's work resonates with me in terms of both the idea of, addressing and supporting housing issues across a variety of the population and sort of really, whether it is thinking about the changes in the community, the demographics of the community, the population of the community, and the diversity of housing need. It seems like that, that's something I'm interested in because of my lived experience. And also, I think there are things that are adjacent housing, like I was really thrilled to hear about the embedded early childhood programs within housing, within certain housing projects, because, that's right up my alley. And I understand, like, that's a real need, right? I mean, parents can't have their head in the game at work if they don't know that their children are cared for. And we also know that, like, those wraparound services are essential for thriving communities. So I think the work, at least some of the work that sounds like the board does, are areas of just real passion for me and real interest. And I really also seek to serve, to bring my skills to bear in the broader community, because I've kind of been in this little space. And now I have, you know, time, talent, and skill to bring to a broader part of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 3.
First, when I ask is there anything, I have your application here and I read it. And I was just wondering if you have any additions you want to make or any changes you want to make to what you wrote here. Because in part, I'm judging you on what you wrote.
Right. Well, I think it's, again, I would just say, as someone who is not intimately, I'm not serving on the board currently, so I can't know the work of the board. And because I work, so as the head of a school, we are a board governed, and it's not the same for any LA school district. It's an independent board. And so I have I guess I didn't talk a lot about effectiveness of working relationships on boards, but I've had significant experience working with boards and on boards as well. And so I guess perhaps that's something that doesn't necessarily come through, but I would say I have pretty extensive experience in board work and understanding also, like, you know, you don't necessarily kind of get into it when you're on paper, but just the decorum, the professionalism, the embracing a variety of perspectives, and like being an active listener, and again, like maintaining curiosity and understanding also, like, as a part of our educational philosophy is humility in adults. So knowing what, like, there's stuff I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So I don't know, maybe I would just say those kinds of more general sort of, you know, who am I things.
The other, that was my first question. The second question is, what unmet or met challenges or solved and unsolved problems in Longmont you think the board should address or deal with?
I don't know that I can address. I mean, it seems to me that there are some big, exciting projects that are happening in the city, and my guess is that, you know, this board has a role in how in those coming online, and perhaps in how they're going to come online. And so I think, you know, just the places that, I don't know that it's an unmet need, but I think, you know, thoughtfulness about how the work of the board engages with the community in a way that feels really inclusive and feels really accessible. So I guess I would say, it seems to me that, you know, there's no doubt that there's been a gap in housing diversity, but it seems also like that's about to change significantly. So that probably would have been my first comment. And I do think it's a real issue that, and I don't, again, I can't speak to it broadly because I only have the sample of the employees I've hired. That you know, I think it's a real important, it's very important that people who are the pillars of the community, who are the frontline workers of the community, can reside in their community and can feel like they have what they need. And so I guess, you know, that feels like that's something that is also, and again, I think one of the things that's hard about this application is you kind of want to say, look, I have time, I have skills, and I want to serve. It's hard to know where you are best aligned serving unless you're really right in it. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next question. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the most significant human service and/or housing needs in our community today?
Um, well, I mean, I think just from a distance, it appears that there is an increasing unhoused population. My sense is that I guess, I see a number of things in that and because I'm going to stay humble because I don't know what I don't know. I would say that, I think a big issue in Longmont is, quite frankly, segregation. I mean, I think that it's a very segregated population. And I do think that like how to get into that in a way that is proactive, but also just reflects, I feel like, the diversity and the rich diversity of the community is an asset, and how people flow in and out of one another's spheres to me feels like an opportunity. I also think early childhood, like there's probably a gap in early childhood programming. And I would say that probably is actually birth to 6 beyond just, 3 to 6. A lot of people talk about early childhood. I do think, universal pre-K is going to be a big help. That is something that lots of people should be all over because there's money available to be spent on that. But I also think it's a birth to 6 issue, and so I think that's. I don't know if that, that's another area that feels important to me. And I think Longmont has a pretty good community vibe, but I just think there's also always in every touch point, there's an opportunity to like lead with love kind of thing. I know that might sound a little hokey, but I really think how to continue to convey that Longmont is a welcoming, diverse, thriving, brave, safe place. Is something that is always a big part of any city's work. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Cassie has our final question.
All right.
So what is the city's or the board or the board's role in addressing these issues you just mentioned?
Well, I guess I would say, like, in terms of the city and the board, I guess leading, at least in my experience, it's a bit of a dance in that a big part of the role of, I think, a city and board is to make sure that the important issues stay front and center, and that they're, and that the resources that are needed to address those issues are brought to bear. And so I would imagine that's kind of the ongoing challenge, creating the infrastructure around which all of the parts dance to form a cohesive implementation. And so I think, that's that in my experience, and again, not knowing I mean, from watching city council meetings, one gets a sense of how the dance works between staff and council and boards, but it's not fully, again, I don't think an individual organization until you're in it. But I think just establishing the priorities, vetting them to the point that everyone who's involved in them is kind of singing from the same songbook, and then making sure that the resources, are there to implement with fidelity whatever you've decided to do, to me is like kind of fundamentally the work of, a staff and a board.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the rhythm of the board.
Great.
And then we will open it up for questions from you. So this board is a very busy board. I would say one of the few boards that are busier than us, probably the planning board, because they have tons of stuff to read, but you're going to read a lot. So we have what I call two really busy seasons, and they're both centered on funding. So the fall is our human services funding process, which is one of our busiest times, where you will You will read around 20 applications, 20 to 30 applications. You will attend several hearings on those applications, and you will provide me with the evaluation forms is about 7 to 8 questions that you have to read and read against the application and what you hear at the hearings, and then provide me ratings on all of the applications. And so that really goes between end of September or mid-September through November. I don't know exactly how many hours it is, but I've heard it's from between more than 20 or more hours. So that's really one of your busy seasons. And then the other busy season is when our housing folks have their turn at their funding. So we have the Affordable Housing Fund, and this board helps recommend to council. Ultimately, both the human services funding and the housing is only recommendations to council. Council gets to decide. But
Right.
they typically will follow our recommendations, but they can change it. But their busy season is between March and June. So you'll be reading a lot of, not as many applications, but more technical applications. And so you get a little more technical support from staff on the housing side than you do the human services side. I do train the board on how to read for outcomes. I'm assuming as an educator, you understand that pretty well, outcomes and outputs and et cetera. I do provide some training on that, but ultimately board members are the ones that decide, the scores and all that kind of things in the priority areas. And so those are our 2 busy seasons throughout the year. I do site visits, and I always invite the board, if anybody from the board is interested in an agency that we're doing a site visit on, to come with me. I understand most board members work, and so they can't, and that's fine. But that invitation will be out there. I'm forgetting anything else? I've said this 3 times tonight, so I think that covers the rhythm. March through June. Somebody asked about meeting times. We meet every second Thursday of the month, except for between, like I said, September and November. Like I said, we did 8 hearings this. I think we did it in 6 weeks. We did 8 hearings. Those hearings can go from 2 hours to 4 hours. It's long, depending on what you signed up for. We do allow the board to sign up for whatever they want to sign up for, priority area they're interested in. But yeah, that typically is only that month. Sometimes we take August off just because it's right before we get into the meat of the work. And so we've already made decisions in July and June, and so we can take August off. So that's the 1 month that we typically take off unless there's stuff that the board has to deal with.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's my spiel. Yeah, it's a lot of work. There's no question. I want to make sure any applicant that is. I ask a lot of you. I mean, I email you all the time reminding you about I need your evaluations. You'll hear from me quite a bit, especially around this time. And you'll hear from our HCI staff during the Housing Community Investment staff during their time. So with that said, do you have any questions for our current board or staff?
Well, I'd love to know a little bit about I think you kind of talked about the relationship between the board and the staff. As staff, are you kind of, you're sort of, you all are guiding the ultimately the priorities, and the board is your.
So we present priorities.
Yeah,
we don't, so we present, we help facilitate, we create the agenda.
Okay, yeah.
And board can always ask for stuff to be on the agenda, but typically staff spearheads the agenda and help facilitate the process, but the board is the one who makes the recommendations.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And throughout my years of kind of working on the school, I have had occasion to kind of have to spend a fair amount. I mean, it's an exhaustive role, so work doesn't scare me. And I also have had it because ultimately, charter school, you kind of run a little operation like it's a baby school district. So all aspects from facility management and operations. So, I mean, even down to things like understanding many of the documents that govern housing in Longmont, like, building codes and things like that. Like I actually had to, you kind of have to do it yourself if you really want the answer. So I feel very comfortable saying that getting into kind of technical documents and applications and things like that with a set of like understanding what the priorities are or what the criteria are for evaluation, I feel very confident in that ability.
So we do our human services funding online. There'll be an online platform. I will get you set up. If you're appointed, I'll get you set up with your own account. So you can, and then once you tell me which priorities you want to evaluate, I add all the applications that are in that priority to your account for you to review. HCI is a little bit different. What they usually do is they give you the application, but they also give you a memo with their recommendations for you to review.
Oh, cool.
So it's a little bit different with them. They actually come to the board with recommendations beforehand, and they provide a memo as to why they're making those recommendations. Of course, the board can change that, but that's typically how they work. With human services, a little bit different. I'm not going to recommend anything to you. I just give you just evaluate, and then I use your scores along with everybody else's to come back with the recommendations. So what you all vote on is really the final recommendations amounts.
Yeah, so I guess, thank you. That's helpful to understand. It sounds like you guys have a pretty efficient platform too in operation. I think in terms of board members, I'm just really curious about your perspective on the greatest, certainly the greatest priorities, but also like what skills would be most valuable to you in terms of an additional board member?
I hope you enjoy reading, because we get lots to read. I mean, numbers, statistics.
Yeah.
It's not novels or romances or anything. It's pretty dull, but a lot of it. And I would warn you about that there's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
Not only that, but from that you get to know about organizations that are nonprofits that are serving people in the city. You get to find out more about how the city's constructed and what the people are that are in it.
Yeah.
And so it's both an education, as I said
Yeah.
before, and
Yeah,
it's also service to the community.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love to hear that, because one of the things that's challenging in my my entire chapter really has been so focused on this, laser focused on this one thing. It is a huge thing, I mean, I wouldn't want to quantify. I mean, I learned about education, moonlighting with reading. I mean, I knew Montessori, but I didn't know public education. I didn't know the Colorado Department of Education. I didn't know, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I had to learn a lot. So but I also am really am. The hardest thing about what I've been doing is not being able to be more broadly involved in the community. And so to me, that's very appealing.
I would say it sounds like you saw a need and you're wanting to make a difference. And so, although like a lot of what we do is recommendations, there are some instances where our voices are heard and we can determine, certain programs, and things that we're offering to the City of Longmont, and how, we approved, certain like some of the functioning of these programs, who they're going to be eligible to, what are the amounts, things like that. And so we do have a say in some of that in making recommendations, and we are making a change. It's it is a lot of work, you read, but it is very rewarding.
Yeah.
And so if you want to make a difference, serve on a board, and it sounds like you do. So I think that's where you're really going to come into play, and I think you'd be really beneficial to this board, because it sounds like you have a lot of passion and you want to serve your community, and this is the perfect board to do that on.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with also knowing your community, and this is a great way to understand like what are some of the human services and housing programs within our city. Nonprofit, county, different things like that, understanding how they work together, how they might not work together.
Right.
What is the city role in that? How do we connect? And so, so that's my take.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. Yeah. And I think, that's appealing. And I think that this particular board is appealing in that the substance of the work. Like, I don't need to sit on a board to sit on a board. I'm really interested in getting more involved in the community versus where I've been, so concentrated. So, yeah.
So, I mean, I think a lot has already been said, but I guess so just skills outside of is like really good listening skills and having compassion. And that's really all I have to add.
I know, that's great. And I mean, that's, the older you get, the better you get some of those things, I think. And so I feel like it's, I'm at a point in my journey where those are skills that I can really lean into.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other questions for the board?
I don't think so. I mean, some.
Well, cool. So then let me go over next steps.
Perfect.
So what's going to happen is on November 14th, the board will vote. The board will take a vote to recommend this slate of applicants. And then we'll write a very brief memo to council saying, yes, we approve of, whoever we approve of.
Mm-hmm.
And then we send that and this video to council to review. And then sometime in December, they will make their final decisions. Again, just reiterating, these are just recommendations. Council gets to decide.
Sure.
And then you will probably hear from somebody in our city clerk's office, not myself, about being appointed to the board. And then after that, you'll hear from me and we'll talk about all the stuff that needs to happen to get on the board.
Very good.
You get a certificate too.
So,
Right.
so yeah, those are the next. The next you'll hear is you'll probably hear from city clerk's office sometime in December after council makes their decisions.
But get your rest now.
Yes. Yes.
By the way, that's all you get.
A sense of meaning and contribution.
Yes. This board does a lot.
Yeah,
No question.
sounds like it.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you so
All
much.
right. Well,
I've appreciated your time and sorry I went out of order there a little bit, but.
No worries. No.
Well, that's quite all right, thanks.
All right, Christine, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Have a great rest of your night.
All right. It was great
Bye,
meeting you.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Thank
Thank you and thanks for letting me in.
Yeah, I'll walk you out.